Broidigam, Director of Sales and Marketing at Custom Built Designer Modeling, and today I am joined by Michael Flory, founder, CEO, and of course my dad. And we're going to talk about a pretty vulnerable topic today. The moments you almost quit in this business.
This will be a good one.
It will be a good one. I mean, you and I have had lots of conversations. Obviously, I've, grown up in this business and really watched it throughout the years. And there's been a handful of really, really challenging moments. There's been a lot of challenging moments sprinkled throughout, but I think, there's a few that really stick out. And so, just to tee it up, I guess, tell us about the first moment that you're in business and you're like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, I've learned a lot over the years. And one of the biggest concepts is the idea that we're going to get somewhere, and once we get there, we'll be all set, And so that mindset, and Dan Sullivan coins it the gap, living in the gap. So when we first started the business, the goal was, to be a nationwide company, with multiple locations, had a really big vision. And for me, the big vision was I wanted to impact a lot of lives. I wanted to really serve, underserved community. We've talked about the ranch a little bit on the podcast. I don't necessarily get into that today, but those are the things that cause me to get up in the morning and not quit. But there's definitely several moments where it's like, is there a place you can put a match and burn this place down, And
That was said so eloquently.
yeah, I was with a few other explicits as you're driving down the road. But I can think of like the first one was probably 2008. I remember at that time, I think we were probably 8 or 10 people in the company, and the economy crashed, and it was slowing down. And then all of a sudden, just like all the contracts we had, we were doing a lot of work for a builder at that time.
Yeah.
Like just stopped. I mean, just like nothing. And simultaneously at the same time, we'd already signed a lease to move into a new building in Okemos versus Lansing. So I had known the owner of the building next door that ran heat and sweep, and we worked out a deal to move over there. We thought that would be a great location, which as it has turned out, we've been there now 20 years, or close to 20 years. So that's been a great location for us. But I can remember, just the experience of, we had a builder that owed us, I think at that time, $50,000, which would be probably closer to $110,000, and went into a winter with very little work, and didn't know how we were going to get through that winter,
And I think 2008 is a really interesting one because so many people felt the pain of that.
Well, it wasn't just 2008, but it was 2009, it was 2010, it was 2011.
Yep.
All your new construction builders. So when I originally was a part of the home builders, it was mostly larger builders that kind of all the vendors were there for them. And this whole idea of a professional remodeling company like we have design and remodeling today wasn't as big of a thing back in 2008. So it's funny how challenging times create opportunities. And one of the opportunities is even when we got into 2009, 10, 11, 12, and the economy seemed to be recovering, the number of new homes just wasn't what it was prior to the crash of 2008.
Yeah.
I think I think the highest year in Michigan was like 54,000 homes, and it was 6,000 in 2009, I think was the lowest. So it went from 54,000 new homes to 6,000 new homes. And then it slowly built up, and it's never gotten back to the number of houses. And we could look back at that and we could say that was speculation, that we were over speculating, but there is actually a massive housing shortage, as we know about today. So for me, going from having all this business to now we don't have enough business and I'm barely scraping by, you're just days where you're thinking like, I'm working all these hours for peanuts, and I don't know if I'm going to make it through it.
And I want to peel back the layer there a little bit because it's like, talking about moments where you feel like you're going to quit and, burn the business down and let's just start clean slate. I mean, like, what was going on? You talked a little bit about the gap gain from Dan Sullivan. Like, what's going on in your brain? What does your day look like? What walls are you hitting?
Well, I think as an entrepreneur, one of the things that you'll see with entrepreneurs is they're resilient and they're willing to do what other people won't do to keep in business. And so I think for, sometimes to the detriment of an entrepreneur, they'll sacrifice their health. So they'll work crazy amount of hours to produce the sales necessary to keep the business going, that, the cash flow
Yep.
side of the business. And I think that was like my first attempt was like, I'll just work more. So I just started working more. And, that can work for a period of time, but if you're neglecting your family and your health and your hobbies, the things that you like to do outside of work. Work, I love work. So, and I think work's got a bad name. I think as a society, we've given it a bad name because I think work is one of the most beautiful things that we have. We're working right now.
Yeah.
There's so many things I love about work, and I'll never stop working for the rest of my life. Like I'm not going to retire. I'm going to keep growing. We have a core value. It's grow or die. And, some of the passionately committed, thinking about our core values, those are the things that are deeply implanted in me, that kept me going during those times, where I just felt like not getting up the next day. I would just get up because, again, I had a vision of this much bigger opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what kept me going.
So many people think of life as I'm going to work to live. And I think there's something so powerful when you can start to think I'm living.
Yeah.
And work is part of that. And life is part of that. And
Right.
family and all of that. And
Right.
figuring out how you can really shape your life so that you do have fulfillment at
Yeah.
all moments.
Yeah, the impact it has when you go home at the end of the day and you're like, man, you're talking to your kids or you're talking to your partner or your spouse, and you're like, telling about the excitement of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like the impact that has on your overall home versus, you've been around people that, it's Monday and they're like, I can't wait till Friday.
Yeah.
And one of the things with small business and with an entrepreneurial type company, it's that we're looking for people that have that drive and that hunger to find a role that they love within our company. And we've really built a beautiful business that allows people to do things. We have content writers, we got videographers. At a construction company, we have, a finance team now, we have a marketing team, a sales team,
Design team.
leaders amongst the sales, team,
Yep.
leaders and then on the production side, which is where all the chaos gets turned into beauty. We have 4 site supervisors and production director of Josh, our director of design and production, and then we have our design team as well. So we've essentially built this out of nothing, and we've created all these different places. Now, if you're in a seat at Custom Built and you don't like that seat, so this will kind of lead into my second, in
Moment.
multiple times along the way, where it's like when you have somebody that's like either filling a role that they're really not passionate about. So it's like they could be the right person, meaning they have our core values, they're hardworking, heads down, like to have fun.
Maybe they're even competent in the job.
Yeah, competent in the job, but they're just not the right person. They don't like the core values at Custom Built. They don't like building new spaces and creating new spaces. It's not fun for them. Well, then you're going to have a misfit, right? So I think along the way, a lot of our biggest challenges come down to, for me, frustrations that I have or things that I see happening. It's because I brought somebody into the company, and there's like typically 2 things. One is we're growing the company. All the issues in the business are my issue. So the buck stops here. The buck starts here, So if I say, hey, let's go from, $1 million to 2 million, but we've never been there before. So we don't really know how many people it's going to take. We don't really know what kind of jobs that we're going to bring in. We can set goals and have plans like, hey, we're going to sell this many kitchens, baths, decks, all that kind of stuff. But if we go out and we don't sell any kitchens, but we sell 20 baths, we need a different number of people. So if we go out and hire people that don't love what they do and they're not part of the core value match, like the frustration that can happen as an entrepreneur, and that like I have this vision to build this thing, but then I have people that don't really want to do the work.
Yeah.
Those can be some of the most frustrating things. And I think on the leadership team level, I think one of the most challenging moments that I've had in my career as an entrepreneur is having the leadership changes, people that were on leadership team that really didn't fit the seat.
Yeah.
And so we had to evolve, and we had to, restructure our leadership team. So in other words, 2011, we're still struggling from the Great Recession, and things are slow. I'm working more and more hours. I met with another entrepreneur, another builder, and he just asked me some questions like, how many hours a week you working? And how many kids do you have? How long do you want to, have a relationship with your family? And I'm like, yeah, that's the most important thing to me. He's like, well, you got to change some things. And so from that meeting, I ended up finding a sales coach, a leadership coach, and I joined Sandler Sales Training, and that was in 2011. And again, I'm writing a check for something that I don't necessarily have the money to do. So these are kind of like gut check moments. Like, do I want to keep putting money out here on a business that I'm not sure is going to take off? The economy is really bad. People are pretty soured at the building industry at this point. Builders, especially trade partners, like a lot of people left the state. Michigan was one of the last states to recover. They were like the lowest exodus state, and even now, it just has changed in the last maybe 5-6 years, where we started having more people coming into the state than were leaving the state. So it's a challenging place to work and live. And so in 2011, I went to my first Sandler Sales leadership and coaching thing, and a coaching session. And that was an investment that I made at the time when I was about ready to give up. I was working so many hours. I was hardly ever home, frustrated. We're not making, the kind of money. I mean, I could make more money working at my job when I was, 20 years old than I was making per hour. Than I was making at this business that I own, with nice trucks and driving down the road, but I'm barely making it. I'm barely scraping by.
And you're not sleeping well. You're not,
not taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So that investment was that came at a time when I needed to invest in myself. And that's a thing that really, I think as entrepreneurs, we have a choice whether we take care of ourselves or we just keep working harder because that's how we think we're going to stay in business. I was actually talking to an entrepreneur yesterday, and he was telling me about it. He's got 3 accounts, and he just wishes one account he didn't have to keep. And I just said to him, I said, hey, I had my largest account in 2008, like just disappear overnight. Like, do you think you have to keep that account? I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we think we have to do. And one of the things that I was doing at that time is I was taking appointments on Saturday. In my first class that I went to, he did this exercise where he had us kind of envision, it was the beginning of the year, and he had us envision all of the files, like of appointments that we would have done the previous year. And I had a file cabinet.
Yeah, you actually had physical folders.
Physical folders, we don't do that as much anymore. But we had, and it was, there was one of these big wide file cabinets, 4 foot wide or whatever it was. And I had two of those that were filled with files, and maybe 50 of them or 75 of them turned into jobs. But the rest of them, maybe there was 400 or 500 that were in that cabinet. I took the time that I had spent on every one of those files, multiplied it, and I was just realizing how much time and effort I was putting into people that we never did work for. And it's the 20% that you do or 30% that you do end up doing jobs for. And I wanted to service those people better. So I had to do something. And what I learned in that first class was like, you don't have to go out and do appointments on Saturday, And as soon as I stopped taking Saturday appointments, all of a sudden we started selling more deals and started selling them at a higher rate because I wasn't giving away everything for free.
So 2008, we had the crash. 2011, you're done. You're almost done, and you invest in sales coaching. What's the next moment? Because I know there's more.
So 2017, at the time I was in a partnership, and we just we had tried a lot of things to make our roles alignment and all that kind of stuff. And when you first start a business and it's at a certain level, you try to divide it, but we just had gotten to an impasse. And it was one of those moments where I was like looking for, somebody had recommended, like, maybe you find somebody that can help you like put the structure to the business together. And at that time I had a friend that was in a partnership as well. and in construction, but he did commercial construction. And I ran across him, and he was telling me, I said, well, what's going on? What's new? And he's like, well, we joined this thing called EOS, and we have an implementer we're working with, and he's really helping us put the structure of our business together and helping us kind of define our roles. It's really bringing a lot of things to the surface, and we're really having to work through some challenging stuff. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but it's called Traction, or EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System, and Traction is the book that Gino Wickman wrote. And so he recommended this guy to me, Eric, and we went and met with Eric, and my partner and I at the time, we went and met with Eric, and that was the beginning of getting the structure of our company to put together in a way that allowed us to grow the business, to scale the business. Up to that point, we just didn't have things defined very well, role-wise. And what I mean by that is, like, every role on we call it an accountability chart. So if you take the visionary or the integrator or the director of sales and marketing, every position at the company has 5 key roles that they're kind of accountable to.
Yeah.
So this, like, your 5 key roles as a director of sales and marketing, there's 5 bullet points. That takes a lot of work to get there, but that was really, like, at that time, the frustration that we had in the company. We weren't doing as much business as we wanted to. Things were just really clunky. And getting involved in EOS and helping us start to define the leadership team was really the beginning. Now, I tell that story, and it's not like it changed everything overnight. There was a lot of frustration up until 2020, really 2022, 2023, when we finally decided that, it wasn't the best fit for the roles that we were playing. And at that time, our director of production stepped down, and happened to be my partner. And so we worked through a buyout, and were able to transact that. Took a lot of work. It was challenging. It was probably one of the most challenging things I had done in business. And anybody that's had a partnership and gone through that, we could do multiple episodes on that. The guy that had recommended me to EOS, who was in the middle of that with his business, he ended up getting bought out by his partner.
Yeah.
So, but the beautiful thing about EOS, and the beautiful thing about what that's done for us, is it allowed us to create a structure that worked. And then once you have the structure, you can start looking at the different roles. So the director of sales and marketing, what are the 5 things they do? And then you can go out and write up a POA, position outline agreement, and then go out and start advertising and hiring the right person. And as you expand, so, like, since then we've added probably another 20 people to our accountability chart.
Yeah.
So you've never done any of all that stuff. So here's what I'll say is that, like, oftentimes when we grow, it creates a lot of challenges and headaches. And if you're not up for that, then you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur. You probably shouldn't start an entrepreneurial company, and it's probably not a great idea for you to say, like, I want to grow. Because the reality is, again, when I look at all the challenges, these 3 that I've talked about today, and there's many more days where it's like, I wasn't happy. Here's what I would say to you is, I'm 100% accountable to my happiness in this business. I'm 100% accountable. If I'm not happy, it's because I've made up stories around what I have to do on a day-to-day basis, rather than I get to choose to go out and create what it is I want to create. And that might seem a little crazy, but the reality is every entrepreneur has that choice. We don't feel like we have that choice. And I think as an entrepreneur, when you don't feel like you have a choice, you feel like you're stuck in a certain business and you can't do anything about it. Those are the days where you want to light a match and just be free from it. And, like, I've hired people that used to own their own businesses, and they've said things like they just didn't want to deal with all of the stuff of owning a business, because it is a lot. It is a lot. And it's, it's not that it's a good or bad thing, but to create a company where people love to be at, and they are compensated appropriately. They are, have the opportunity to create and build things like podcasts. And, I think of Matthew a lot as a videographer that came on, and just, he's had the opportunity to not only be our videographer, but and create, videos to get out, but he's helped create a TV show with you and me. And, the value that that brings to a company where he's got some entrepreneurial freedom, some ability to grow. And that wouldn't be the case if we didn't want to grow as a company. So, but the challenge is when I said, hey, we want to go from 2 million to 4 million, or 4 million to 10 million, or 10 million to 20 million, or wherever you're at. If you want to, like, our friends took their business from, I think when I met them originally, they took their business from a couple million to, over, hundreds of millions of dollars now, like anytime you make those jumps, you're going to have these inflection points where things aren't the way you want them to be. And it's because you didn't have the SOPs. It's because you didn't have the structure in place. It's because you didn't have the right people. All of those things are real. And it's just the process of growth. It hurts a lot of times to grow. And so just my encouragement is that, kind of going back to it, I've had a lot of inflection points where, I wanted to give up. I wanted to quit. I haven't quit. I haven't given up. I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. Mistakes are the greatest learning opportunities. And as long as you continue to learn, as long as you continue to grow, and as long as your heart is to serve people, create value in the marketplace, that's where the magic really happens. And at the end of the day, if you're out creating value for homeowners and for people in the community, and doing your very best, like, you're going to be successful.